you. I don't speak English very well. Thank you, Sky.
Spizzy.
Spizzy. Sorry. Hello, folks. How are you doing?
I'm great.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to read from this play called A History of the World. And it's autobiographical. It's a bit of a detective story. Took a long time to write because it took a lifetime to live it. It evolved out of a series of lectures that I gave at Guelph University. And then eventually my own story sort of got woven into it. It's got a lot of multimedia. I'm not going to read all the multimedia. Just imagine this giant weather balloon suspended over my head. And a lot of projections go on that weather balloon. Okay. A lot of projections fall on me here. A lot of projections over there and stuff like that. Kind of things happen. Okay. So when does the history of the world begin? Ever thought about it? If not, I'd like you to. When exactly does the history of the world begin? But before we get to the history of the world, maybe we should start with, did the universe always exist? Well, the most popular hypothesis was conducted by a priest, Father Georges Lemaitre, in 1927. He proposed that the universe came from a tiny point, the primordial atom, or cosmic egg, that exploded at the time of creation roughly 13 billion years ago, and has been expanding ever since, popularly known as the Big Bang. Flash forward 1.6 million years, and primordial clouds of gas and gravity are giving birth to planets, but just like the one that we all call home. And that makes our Terra Mater roughly 4.5 billion years old. The ancient Egyptians believed the world rose out of the lifeless waters of chaos called Nu. Ancient Greeks believed out of chaos emerged Gaia, the earth. It's a common theme in all creation myths. First chaos, then everything else. The only major differences are when and how the gods and goddesses get the idea to create us. This is the one I grew up with. There's a blackout. Let there be light. And it was good. 6 days creation done. On the 7th, God took a break, but something's missing. So he creates Adam. From what? A handful of dust. He could have created Adam out of anything, platinum, gold, silver, diamonds. Instead, he chose dust to make his most precious creation. Don't bother asking why. This God is tight-lipped about a lot of the reasons he does what he does. Anyway, Adam gets lonely, so God creates Eve. Be fruitful and multiply, you crazy kids. If you're familiar with this story, then you know God also, yet again, inscrutably, created a dastardly serpent. Serpents get a lot of bad rap in almost every creation story. Snake tempts Eve to take a bite of some low-hanging fruit from the tree of knowledge. She does. Adam does. God shows up. What the hell, guys? I told you not to do one thing. One thing. But if God knows everything, then why didn't he know that Adam would inevitably get lonely? The serpent would tempt Eve, and he would kick them out of the Garden of Eden for acknowledging their public nudity. I mean, there are just so many questions you're not supposed to seek the answers to if you believe in this God. And this God is really good at keeping secrets. So if you believe in that very version of creation, you'll probably dismiss any talk about the Big Bang as fake news. But it doesn't matter, because we're still stuck with my first questions. When does the history of the world begin? Oh, you're a little cutie, aren't you? Yes, you are. You're a little cutie. Does a little cutie know when the history of the world began? Do you? Obviously, it's useless asking a baby when the history of the world began because they have no concept of time or history. But to a baby, to be a baby again, when our major preoccupations were eating, pooping, and putting everything we could get our tiny little baby hands on into our mouths, probably the same preoccupations our Paleolithic ancestors indulged in when they weren't looking for shelter, humping each other, or dodging other predators. Driven by instinct, they lived completely in the present because they didn't have the mental capacity to record history or even think about it. No past to be haunted by, no future to worry about, no higher brain functions yet. I admit, I wasn't an exceptional baby. Like most babies, I had no concept of history or time, or that the delicious things I couldn't resist putting in my mouth were my own hands and feet. But then somewhere in our first 18 months, the moment arrives when we discovered that the delicious treats we were sucking on are attached to us. An auspicious moment occurs. In fact, a revolution. A cognitive revolution. Self-awareness. That's what separated us from all other sapiens, and we became the Homo superiors. Just think of what we've accomplished since that happened. Masters of the world. It is truly mind-boggling what we have accomplished since we became self-aware roughly 160,000 years ago. Which brings us back to the first question I asked. Lights up on Madeline. The history of the world? What does that got to do with anything? Who gives a shit? I got more important things to think about. Blackout on Madeline. Okay, maybe you don't give a shit when the history of the world began. Believe me, it's not a question I ever thought I'd be asking a bunch of strangers to think about. But stranger things have happened. Because strange things do happen, don't they? And sometimes it's the strange, unpredictable things that happen to us that remind us that things aren't always what they seem. Ever had one? I'm talking about an experience that made you look at your life, the world, differently. Something unexpected. Something that shook you to your core. Something earth-shattering that made you question everything. And if anything like that has happened to you, then you might have asked yourself, do I act on this? Or do I just chalk it up to one of life's peculiar occurrences that'll just be an interesting story to tell at parties or a paying audience? Something that reminds you that everything can change in an instant. Like a time bomb in the brain. Oh, okay, it's time. When does the history of the world begin? It begins with consciousness. We need to be conscious and self-aware for the history of the world to begin. And what does consciousness make us aware of? Our suffering. And we spend the most of our lives trying to avoid the causes of that suffering. However, even with all the advances we've made in science, we still haven't solved the mystery of how the brain actually produces consciousness. Yes, despite all our accomplishments, there are still mysteries to be solved. So if you accept that the history of the world begins with consciousness, then it's personal. It becomes your history of the world. And this history of the world is very, very personal. Mama, what's that? That's a tree. Tree. Can you say tree? Tree? What's that? It's a squirrel. Squirrel? Squirrel. It's a squirrel. Leave it alone. It's dirty. It'll bite you and you'll get sick. Mama, what's that? That's an onion. If you see one of those, you cross the street, start walking in a different direction. Now go and play with the squirrel. It's estimated that a toddler asks about 300 questions a day. When we stopped dragging our knuckles on the ground those many millennia ago and took that cognitive leap, we must have looked around and asked, what's that? At least as many times a day, and then started naming things. Me grog, you griga, rock, tree, sky, sun, moon, mother, father, sister, brother, everything. It countered, labeled, solidified, concretized. We don't know what the first words actually uttered were once we got beyond guttural grunts, but the first words most of us utter is usually mama or dada. I don't know which I said first, but that's where the history of the world begins for me, with Mommy and Daddy, Madeline and Joe Roy. And I was certain they knew everything about the world because they were the first people to teach me the names of things. Our brains are amazing, aren't they? It's nothing short of a miracle that we remember so many names and labels for everything from the mightiest God to the tiniest particle of matter. Why? What exactly are we trying to achieve by naming everything? Certainty. We humans love certainty. Once there was certainty that the earth was flat. Dinosaurs were giant lethargic lizards. Human intelligence was centered in the heart. Cigarettes were harmless. Polyester pantsuits were attractive fashion choices, and polka beads were cool. We were once confident with a high degree of certainty about what makes up the material universe. Then along comes some genius with a theory that a lot of it is actually invisible dark matter. Yeah. Apparently 85% of the universe is made up of dark matter. Imagine There's a great darkness all around us that we're not even conscious of. Eddie, come in here. We want to talk to you. Come on, hurry up, slowpoke. Madeline and Joe are sitting in the living room, waiting for me. It's so quiet. Am I in trouble? No. Joe, you sure you should tell him? Tell me what? It's not my idea. Anyway, we don't want you to get upset, okay? Oh, okay. You're adopted. We adopted you. Do you know what that means? You're not my real mommy and daddy? That's right. Your real mommy and daddy couldn't take care of you. When you were a baby, Joe, Daddy was a friend of your real father. Your parents weren't getting along anymore and they didn't know what to do with you. Why are you telling me? Because you don't want me anymore? Oh, for Christ's sakes, no, we're not telling you because we don't want you anymore. Daddy and me wanted you to know so you wouldn't be mad at us if you found out when you were on your own when you're older. You still love me? Don't be stupid. Of course we love you. I loved you as soon as I took you in my arms. Isn't that right, Joe? Why are you crying? You got nothing to cry about. Look how lucky you are. Who knows where you would have ended up if we didn't take you? Are you going to read him the letter, Joe? He takes the letter out of his pocket and starts reading. I, Leo Chironi. Leo? That's your real father's name. I, Leo Chironi, place in the care of Joe and Madeline Roy, my youngest son, Eduardo Chironi. Eduardo? My real name's Eduardo? What kind of name is that? Italian. Leo's Italian. You're a little wop. Except your mother was English or Irish or something like that. Are they coming to take me back? Don't worry, we're not going to let anyone take you away from us. We promise we won't let anybody take you away, okay? Okay. Anything else you want to know? Where was I born? Montreal, just like me and Daddy. Now come here, you little wop, so I can give you a big hug. Can I tell my friends? No. How come? Because it's nobody else's business, you understand? Uh-huh. Can I go back out and play now? No. Daddy thinks we should go for a drive and get some ice cream. I'm sitting in the back seat of the car looking out of the window. Who was Eduardo? The world didn't look the same as it had just a few minutes ago when I was certain Joe and Madeline were Mommy and Daddy, and my name was Eddie Roy. But what's in a name? In Shakespeare's famous balcony scene, Juliet contemplates that question while mooning over Romeo and realizes it is nor hand, nor foot, nor arm, nor face, nor any other part belonging to a man. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. For Juliet, names are superfluous because names, labels, can't capture the essence of a person, can they? When Madeline and Joe told me I was adopted, for a moment, a millisecond, I had no name. I just floated, uncertain of everything, until they said they still love me. Please, chop.
So Eduardo Chironi.
Yes, I felt very vulnerable there. I haven't read that in public in a long time. I felt very vulnerable there, folks.
And you began to do this. You were teaching at the Guelph University, and you started to develop this play there. Was this for the students, or how you did it with the students?
I kind of started off with I was teaching directing and theater, and I was teaching acting, and so we would talk about Shakespeare, and we would talk about Chekhov and Ibsen. And I wanted to contextualize it for them, so I asked them what they knew about history, and they didn't know anything about history, so I started to improv the history of the world. It started off, so it's like this, I started off from the beginning of the universe, and I would take them right through all the various points in history, and it became something that the students really enjoyed, and it became like a 4-hour improv. And eventually it evolved into the idea for this play.
And you must tell me a little bit about yourself, because I don't know if many people know that you are an actor and a director and a writer. And I know for one thing that you have written, how many plays have you written? Come on, how many?
I think about 15, 16 plays.
And you've written a lot of plays for the young adults, correct?
During the 1990s, I wrote about 6 plays specifically targeted for teen audiences that addressed a lot of issues that most writers wouldn't address. So there was homophobia, there was date rape, there was a play about patricide, various things. These were a lot of sort of groundbreaking plays at the time because most people were writing plays about for younger audiences. So I targeted the teenage audiences because I thought I had things to say to them.
And they were very popular, as far as I know now. Oops, sorry, don't say still. I'm not drunk, I'm just old. So don't they still get performed now and then?
A few of them toured for about 14 to 15 years, and then now, so times have changed. I've just read recently. We read one in one of my classes that I teach, and the play from the 90s now sounds like a play from the 90s. So no, they don't get to
because the issues changed, or the way people approach
the way that people approach them. Yeah, I don't think the issues are still a lot is still with us, but yeah, just the way we express them and how we're not.
But when you say you're teaching, you must tell me where you're teaching right now. You're teaching at CIT.
Yes, right? The Center for Indigenous Theatre.
And how long have you been teaching there?
I think about 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you get involved with CIT? Because well, first of all, did it happen because of, and we will mention your famous show, Agokwe. I'm not
yeah.
It's hard for me to pronounce that, not that language. But Agokwe, and it was, how long ago was that? About 10 years ago, maybe?
No, that was like in 2008.
Oh my God, it's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
And that was a play that you helped a young indigenous gay man to create, correct?
That's correct.
And then it tours the world, did it not?
Kind of, yeah.
I know it went to Australia.
It went to Australia, it went to England, went all across Canada a few times.
And was that how you got involved with the Indigenous theatre?
Yeah, eventually, because I got to know the community, and they asked me to teach and to mentor various Indigenous writers, and I just got involved with the community. Yeah.
And it must be very, very exciting and fascinating for you to be, because I went to see recently one of your plays. You invited Spizzy as part of his research. Spizzy does a lot of research for his interview. So you invited Spizzy to come and see a play that you did at the CIT with the students. And I thought that, well, actually it wasn't one that you did, but one that they did. And I found it very interesting what they were doing there. It was all about history and legend and myths, right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you enjoy that job?
Sure. Yes, I do.
You do. I can see what kind of an interview this is going to be. Yes and
Wait
no.
a minute, yeah. So yes, but I'm not going. I see what's missing here. I'm not going into the mystical realms yet.
Yeah, right. But no, because you touched on, I was going to, when you first started reading, I was going to ask you, and I was going to say, consciousness. That's what I was going to start with. Because for me, consciousness is big question, because sometimes I think it is a tragic fate. Now, you cannot answer this just yes and no, but I hope. It is our tragic fate, yes or no, that we are blessed or cursed. Which is it? Because are we not the only creatures who knows that we die?
I think we're the only creatures that are trapped within time.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of our cognizance and awareness, right?
Yeah, and so I think that on the one hand, we know we have a consciousness of ourselves and our lives, and we think that the animals, now maybe the animal rights people will argue, but they don't seem to know about the death. I know they don't like it if you hit the dog not like it. But the dog not like a person.
No,
I know you got the dogs, Ryan, but the dogs are like a person. They don't think I'm going to die someday. I better have a worthwhile life, right?
We do know that there are species that have memory, that they mourn, they grieve. Okay. We know that they'll go back to areas and specific spots where.
But I'm talking about very specific.
But what you're asking about is, do they have a consciousness, a fear of death beforehand? Are they plagued by it?
Yes.
As we are.
Why am I here? That is the question Spizzy asks himself every day.
They're not plagued by that. They're not plagued
by that.
Yes,
and so why am I here is a specifically human question.
But the other thing about it is, Spizzy, is that they're also not trapped within time. So we're trapped between the future. We're constantly thinking about the future, or remembering the past. We're very rarely right here in the present.
Time is a
Because,
construct.
well, that's right. That's in this play. That's what this play is about, the construct. Because where we are, what we have difficulty with is being in the now, which is all that we have, is now, right now. That's all that really exists.
And you, now am I allowed to reveal something about your personal section? No, not your sexual. Your personal relationship with the universe. Can I talk about your practice?
Sure.
So this man is a Zen Buddhist. Did I get it right?
Well, not necessarily Zen.
Okay, what the fuck are you then?
I am a practicing Buddhist.
He's practicing. So I know
I'm
because
practicing, still trying to get it right.
during COVID, I would call him and then and he would be meditating for hours on end, which is very good because I was like going crazy during COVID, and he was meditating. So that is a practice which you have had for many years, and
That's correct.
so this has to do with the time. Oh, I know, being present. That's what I was thinking. Being in the present. That's what it teaches you, does it not?
It certainly does. That's what we're all striving to do. Try to be here now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that's what I'm not. That's what very important, because I was thinking very much about Hillel Lataya recently. So I am back to him and about why.
Back to the past.
Why he did his theater and how it wasn't about money, it wasn't about fame, it wasn't about the future, it wasn't about all of that stuff. It was about just being there and doing it, which is something else about being in this room, because the world could blow up, especially with the, okay, now I've gone off on another topic.
You have, you've gone
So tell me a little bit more about, tell me a little bit more. Oh, I know, I want to ask you about Japan. So Elley, she went to China. I never go northwest, but you went to Japan. Why? I think you had an invitation from the big person.
From the big person, yeah. I worked on an adaptation by the Princess Takamado of Japan. She'd written a book, a children's book at the time. And the Walt Disney of Japan, a great Japanese impresario, had contacted me because he'd heard of my work with shadow theater and so on. And I went there and worked for a number of years creating a piece of theater with the Kagebusha Theater Company. Has anybody ever seen the movie Kagebusha? Which is about, it's basically Shadow Warrior. And so this is a shadow play theater, right? So I collaborated with this Japanese company, and we created this theater piece. This was quite interesting, and of course I met the princess and all the various, the court and so on and so forth.
Was she nice?
She was one of the most urbane and sophisticated people I've ever met in my life.
Is she the queen now?
No, she cannot become a queen.
That's the princesses, right?
They don't have queens, they have empresses and emperors.
Okay, then she becomes the empress.
No, she didn't, because actually her husband was second in line.
Oh.
So he was, only if his brother passed would he become the emperor. So that kind of got them off the hook. But it was interesting talking to her. So we were at one cocktail party, and I was asking her about the Shinto religion, because that's the national religion of Japan. And I was asking her, I said, so do you adhere to the Shinto religion, or do you believe it? And she had this really wry smile. You've got to understand, when you're talking to a princess like this, there's everybody standing around you, and they're watching you, right? They're watching every word, and they're all waiting for a moment to get in with her. And she smiled, and she said, it makes people happy. So I and my husband, we attend the ceremonies, and we're very happy to be there. Which is very, very diplomatically. And then she took us out for some whiskey, and then I got to really know her. No, she was a really lovely person. She was just really down to earth. She was very much aware of where she was and who she was.
You said that Japan was like another culture, but gigantically other. That colors, like Tokyo, colors, lights, difference.
Technology.
A lot of technology.
Lots of technology. Well, I felt like
not like New York.
I felt like the other because not being Japanese, being Genji, I felt it for the first time.
They call them Genji?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Non-Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have sex there? No, I didn't ask you that.
Yes, I had. I was actually going out with somebody at the time who came in and spent some time with me.
Oh, is that right? What was his name?
Were you tall? Were you tall?
I was tall.
That's why
I was tall, and then I had a translator. And the interesting thing is, and she was really a lovely person, but because she was traveling with me, this Japanese person, because when they saw us together, everybody, of course, thought that we were together, because there was this whole myth about the white guys who would go there and date Japanese women, and so you kind of got a lot of dirty looks because of that.
And they all thought I was straight, which
Now-
didn't help. It didn't hurt me at all.
Now, I want to talk to you about something very important. Sky Gilbert. I don't know why he interests me so much, but I understand that you worked with him over and over again. What was that like? I've heard so many stories about him, that he's mercurial, that he's crazy. Elley said some nice things about him, but I don't know. What the fuck is he? What was it? Because he directed you in a play, and another play, and another play, and then you were the assistant artistic director. Oh my God, I got that wrong. You were the associate artistic
I
director.
can't believe it. I'll tell you something about this.
of
Busy
Buddies in
remembers.
Bedtime Theater.
Busy actually remembers my title, which was Associate Artistic
Sky
Director.
can't remember
Because
it, I
if you
know,
ask Sky,
impressive.
Sky would basically say, "Oh, he was my Assistant Artistic Director." So I thank you, Spizzy, for remembering that. I met Sky.
It's like in Sky Gilbert's book when he said you were 5'7",
He did, and he said
and
it
he's
was
5'9". So
a
remember that.
spicy Italian guy.
Yeah. Anyway, Sky Gilbert, go on.
Oh,
I
so
can't
you
stop hearing
you
about him.
more to say about Sky Gilbert?
Yeah.
Well, let's just put it this way. I auditioned for Sky back in 1984, which for a play called Radiguet, which was a play
Big
about.
flop.
Well, and it was a huge.
Not because of you, because of someone else.
It was yes, it was an interesting an adventure. But from that time, I felt that we were kindred spirits in a lot of ways with the arts, and we became really good friends. That guy Sky Gilbert and I, and we've worked on a lot of plays together.
And what do you have to say about this witness for the prosecution, because you accepted to direct it?
Yeah, because first of all, I really love the movie. Have we seen Witness for the Prosecution?
Have you seen that movie?
Really good
Yes,
movie.
yes. It's some people's favorite movie.
And
It is.
it is.
It is.
And I just thought that it would be exciting to work with Sky again. And here's the thing about Sky. Sky's so
I'm not
rare.
drunk. I'm just old. Go ahead.
Sky so rarely lets anybody else direct his plays.
That's right.
Right.
Only Ed, basically.
I think so. I think maybe this is the third or fourth play of yours that I've directed, right, Sky? Because I directed you in Drag Queens in Outer Space.
When it went to San Francisco.
I went to San Francisco. And so this was
Not
another.
me, but Sky Gilbert you directed.
Yeah, Sky Gilbert.
And
Spizzy.
you directed
So the opportunity to.
Radiguet and Horse Revenge.
Horse Revenge.
And
yes.
all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I guess that we've gone over our times, and time is a construct.
Yes,
but
it is.
It's also something that we're obsessed with, but we must live in the present and say it's time to go. So would you please
Okay, now it's
have applause for Mr. Edward Eddie Roy? Edward!